Hey everyone, welcome back for another video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you more of my favorite sewing essentials. So if you missed the first video, I will go ahead and link that in the description box below as well as up in the cards here, and you can check that video out. That is the first video I did with my favorite sewing essentials, and since then there's been a request for more of the things that I like to use when I'm sewing and creating projects here on my YouTube channel. So that's what this video is for today. So let's go ahead and jump into more of my favorite sewing essentials. Alright, so the first one of the tools that I'm going to share with you guys today is called a bodkin. Now, if you're not familiar with these look like a little pair of tweezers, so you would think you would find these in a bathroom instead of in a sewing room. But the really cool thing about this little tool is it costs less than $2 and it takes the place of a safety pin for rethreading drawstrings on sweatshirts and pants. You can use these to thread elastic through the arms of a garment if you're sewing a shirt or a little girl's dress. They just have a lot of functional uses and they work a lot better than a safety pin, which is what a lot of people use when they're doing things like this. So I'm going to show you how to use this today. First thing you do is push the slide all the way up to the rounded edge of the bodkin, which allows it to open up, exposing the little teeth on the opposite end. You're going to take your drawstring cord, your elastic, or whatever it is you're wanting to thread, and you're going to put that between the little teeth end on your bodkin. Make sure that it's really got a good hold on that cording, and then you're going to slide the little grip all the way up until that is really tight and secure. Then you're going to take the rounded end and you're going to start to thread that up through your sweatshirt or in through your pair of pants or whatever it is that you need to rethread. You're going to push that down as far as you can, gathering up that fabric on that little bodkin tool. And you're just going to feed it like this all the way through what needs to be rethreaded. So this goes really fast. I just found that these little tools work a lot better and more efficiently than a safety pin. With a safety pin, you obviously run the risk of the pin coming unhooked and then it stabs you through the fabric. So this little tool works great for that. So I actually keep one of these in my sewing room, I keep one in my car, and I have one in my laundry room. But that's how you would rethread a sweatshirt. I did that in less than a minute. No hassle, I didn't get poked by a pin, and yeah, so this is definitely a handy little gauge that I highly recommend keeping around if you're not familiar with this. I will put a link for all of these items I'm going to share with you today down in the description box below, so they are easy for you to find. Let's move on to my sewing essential number 2. Lockables case made by Craftmates. Now, I purchased this case at my local Joann's, I believe. They do sell these on Amazon as well, so I will have these linked below. But the great thing about these containers is that they're clear, they're large enough to store your sewing machine needles, and they're lockables. Press down on this little purple button on the side, and that allows you to individually open up each section of your container. So I have all of my different sewing machine needles, the different sizes, my stainless needles and my titanium needles completely separated out. So this makes them really easy to store in my drawer that I keep next to my sewing machine. I have a couple specialty sewing machines that require needles that don't fit any of my other machines. So I have cases for those needles specifically. I took a label maker and I labeled the side of them. So they're easy to distinguish those needles from the ones that fit into my regular sewing machine. So I wanted to share this with you guys. It's a great organizational tool if you have a lot of different machines, a lot of different sewing needles that you want to keep straight and you don't want to keep them in a basket or a box that could potentially get shoved off to the side and misplaced. So I thought this was a great storage solution for sewing machine needles, so I wanted to make sure I included that here today. So if you haven't heard of these Craftmates lockable containers, I highly encourage you to check these out, especially if you really like to keep your sewing things organized and really tidy. These fit into a drawer. There is 7 different compartments for different size needles, and I've just found that this is a great way to save that needle storage problem for all your sewing machines. All right, so next up on the list today are peels and bobbinis. So if you're not familiar with these are little silicone peels that fit around your spools of thread. So not all thread has a little slit in the top and or the bottom where you can hook your thread to keep it nice and tidy when it's not in use. So this company developed these little silicone peels that fit right around your spool of thread to hold that thread into place so it doesn't come unwound and make a big mess. And the coordinating bobbinis are also made of silicone, and they fit into any size of your thread spools that you may have. If you use Coats & Clark, this is Aurifil thread. They fit into the large spools as well as the small spools because they are silicone. And those just slide right into the top of the spool of thread to hold the coordinating bobbin in place with the thread. So I think these are a handy little invention. Again, it just is one more thing to keep you organized, keep your threads looking nice, and keep your bobbins and your threads together. So I will say that this is the Thread Peels brand of these holders and Bobbini brands of bobbin holders here. You can purchase I guess a generic brand of these items on Amazon. And here is one of those generic ones. And I will say with these, they are definitely not as flexible. They are not as soft. And when you open them up to put them around your spool of thread, they take a lot longer to close than the Thread Peels brand. So they work just as well. They are a little bit less expensive, but I found that I really prefer the Peels brand over the generic for that reason. So here is the Peels, and here's the generic version. And I just opened this one up, and as you can see, it hasn't recoiled all the way. Whereas the Peels one, once it's opened, if you close it, it immediately snaps back up to size. So I prefer these, but again, if you're trying to save some money on some random little sewing notions that you don't necessarily need, go ahead and check out the generic version as well. I prefer the Thread Peels, but again, both of them work exactly the same. They're both just intended to keep your spool of thread looking nice and tidy, so both of them do work for that purpose. So when you purchase these on Amazon, obviously each one of these items, the bobbinis and the Thread Peels, are sold separately, and they come in multicolor packs. So you get a mix of orange, blue, green, and like a neon pink in a bag for the Thread Peels, and same for the bobbinis. I haven't seen these sold separately as far as colors, so you can't just purchase blue or green. They just come in a multi-pack. So I will go ahead and link these down below, but yeah, I think these bobbinis and Thread Peels are just one more great way to keep yourself organized and keep your sewing room nice and tidy. Pipe cleaners. Now you're probably wondering, why are you using pipe cleaners? What are you using those for, and what purpose do they serve in a sewing room? Well, a funny little story is a couple years ago for Christmas, my mom actually put a bag of pipe cleaners in my stocking. And at first I was not entirely sure what she was doing, or if she put those in my stocking by mistake when they were supposed to go in my kid's stocking. I was thinking I'm a little old for pipe cleaner crafts, but that's okay. And so later on when I asked her about it, she told me that people are using these to clean their sewing machines. I'd never thought of that. It's totally genius. They're really inexpensive. You can purchase these at the dollar store. You can buy them on Amazon for about 99 cents or so per pack. Obviously, if you want to get choosy about the color, you can get specific colors. But the great thing about pipe cleaners, obviously, is you can use them more than once. I usually use mine 5 or 6 times before I throw them out. I usually take the pipe cleaner and I fold them in half and I cut them, because you don't really need a pipe cleaner this long to clean your sewing machine. And so each pack of these lasts years. So next up on my list is going to be my applique pressing sheet. I did purchase this on Amazon. It's about $15. It's quite large in size. And this is what it looks like. It's got kind of a silicone, plasticky feel to it. It's flexible, so if you don't want to store it in the package, you can also roll it up, put a little rubber band around it, and stick it in a drawer next to your sewing machine. But on the front of this pressing sheet here, it gives you a list of all the different things this can be used for. In particular, I use this to fuse my fusible foam and my fusible fleece to my fabric to protect my iron from getting sticky residue on it that I will have to clean off. You can use it to fuse applique, use it as a pressing cloth, a craft sheet, a painting surface, use it to protect your ironing board. It's great because it's light in color, so it's really transparent, so you can see through it, which is really great. You can use it hundreds of times. It's washable. It's double-sided, so you can use both sides of the pressing mat, not just one, and they're both exactly the same. Because this doesn't have a tacky surface to it, it slides easily over the tops of pattern pieces and things like that. So, but for the price of these, I highly recommend them if you like to do appliques. If you have kids that love to do painting projects, these work great again because they're washable. So the size of this applique pressing sheet is 13 inches by 17 inches long, so it's pretty good size. And again, for the cost, I think it's really worth the $15. So I decided to include that in my list of essentials for today. True Grips. Now these are just little silicone adhesive rings. So you stick these to the back side of your clear acrylic rulers. You can also stick these to the bottoms of your magnetic pin cushions or just regular pin cushions to keep them from sliding all over your sewing table. I believe these are $6 or $7 for a pack of 15. And these rulers are rulers that I shared with you guys in my last video. And these are the Ellipfa lip edge rulers that hook onto the edge of your cutting mat. And so just to offer one more form of keeping these rulers in place while you're cutting, I like to stick these clear little silicone adhesive rings to the four corners of my ruler. So if you start getting lint built up on the bottom of these little rings, it's easy just to take a damp, warm cloth and wipe the lint off of these things. And they're still just as effective. So I've never had to replace these on any of my rulers or my pin cushions. So I really like the fact that they keep my rulers in place while I'm cutting, which in turn is just going to give you that much more protection using a rotary cutter and your clear acrylic rulers. So I really like these True Grip adhesive rings for that purpose. Magic Bobbin Genies. Now these are little round, white, super thin Teflon discs that you insert into your bobbin case before you put your bobbin in. Eliminates backlash and bird nests on the underside of free motion quilting, thread painting, or embroidery when changing directions at high speeds. So it's essentially just eliminating the friction from your bobbin in your bobbin case when it's trying to spin at faster revolutions to unload your thread faster for thread painting and free motion quilting. I keep these in my bobbin case at all times. When I'm sewing just regular projects, making handbags, doing quilts, anything that I'm sewing, I always have these in all of my machines. So next up for the things that I want to share with you guys is something I always get questions on in my videos. And people are always asking why I'm sewing on my cutting mat. And I didn't get the correlation at first, but now I totally do. So here is my Olfa cutting mat that I shared with you guys in the previous video. And as you can see, my slider mat that goes on top of my extension table is the same color. So no, I'm not sewing on top of my cutting mat. I get why you guys would say that, but this is like a magnetic little grid that sticks to the top of your sewing extension table. So obviously you can see there's different gridded lines. for different seam gauges and things like that. This just works really, really well if you're doing bigger projects, small projects. I really like having these gridded lines on my sewing table to keep my sewing lines straight and more accurate. And I think these are great because they stick to the surface and they're reusable. So when this mat is not in use, it just peels right off of your extension table. It has a clear, like Teflon style back that just clings to the back of your mat to keep it nice and clean. It rolls up really small, and you can store it in a drawer on your sewing table because it fits right inside this little clear plastic tube. So there's that green version of it. There's also this version, which is also made by Sew Steady. This one is clear. It is quite a bit smaller. This one is only an 8 by 10 in size. But as you can see, this one also has gridded lines on it, and it will also stick to the extension table the same way as this green one. So I actually think I prefer the green mat instead of the clear one just because of the size. This one is an 18 by 11, so it's quite a bit larger than this one that is an 8 by 10. Both of them work exactly the same, so if you have a preference, the price point for this one is a little bit higher. I believe this one was about $25 and this one was about $18. So if you're wanting to invest in a gridded sewing mat to hook on the top of your extension table, I recommend this brand. I've had both of these for about 5 years. Both of them work great. They still continue to function even after all that time, and I couldn't recommend this brand more. So if that's something you're considering, maybe check one of these out to see if it's something that would work for you. All right, next up are seam gauges. So I have two different types here. I use them both. This little metal one right here I purchased at my local craft store. They are available on Amazon as well. So both of these brands are really inexpensive. I think the magnetic one was around $4. I think this package of the reusable silicone gauges was about $6. Both of them work exactly the same, but one is magnetic and one is just got a sticky back to it. When you do peel these off, there is no sticky residue on the top of your sewing machine, so I really appreciated that about this company in particular. I have tried the stick-on ones before and found that they left like almost like a sticker on my sewing machine table that I had to clean off. And I've never had that issue with this particular brand. I will say that if you are considering the magnetic seam gauge, I heard that you're not supposed to use these on computerized sewing machines. I usually use this one on my Juki, which is not computerized, but I heard that putting a magnet on the computerized machine can actually mess up the timing. So just note that if you have a computerized style sewing machine or embroidery machine or whatever you're intending to use this on, I might recommend these stick-on gauges instead of the magnetic one. Again, I don't know this from experience if this will actually do that to your machine or not, but I would hate for that to happen. So just be cautious, and I would probably recommend these ones. But these little purple ones are fantastic. You get 5 strips in one package. They come on a little sheet like this, and they're really easy just to peel off the paper, and they stick right on your machine where you need them. So if you're looking to do a 1/4 inch seam, a 1/2 inch seam, and you don't have that specialty foot that may hook on your machine for that seam allowance, these things work great. So they're smooth on the surface, so your fabric glides right over the top of them if you needed it to. Again, they stick down really easily and they peel up and don't leave any kind of stickiness on the back of your machine. So I really like and recommend both of these things. Again, just take caution if you are using or considering the magnetic guide for your computerized machine. Yeah, I recommend both of these just depending on what kind of machine you have. So it says on the back of this package, you can sew a perfect 1/4 inch scant line on any and all sewing machines. They're reusable, unlike masking tape and or moleskin that some people use. Aligns in front of your foot so adjustments can be made, and it's great for all ages and abilities. So I highly recommend this company, as well as I think this is a Dritz brand magnetic seam gauge. Alright, so the last thing I want to share with you guys is my sewing chair. So a couple weeks ago when I posted my sewing essentials video, I shared with you my height adjustable sewing desk. So this time I thought I would share with you my height adjustable sewing chair. So these chairs I purchased a few years ago. I own 2 of these and I keep one at each one of my sewing stations. These chairs are height adjustable. They have wheels on the bottom so they can move around your sewing room really easily. The bands that are made of bungee that are on these chairs are about 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches wide, which makes it really comfortable to sit on. You can purchase this chair with arms or without, so if you prefer chairs that don't have arms on them, that is an option for you. So when I purchased my height adjustable sewing desks, I really wanted to invest in a good chair since I do spend a lot of time sitting and sewing, and I thought these were a great option. So I've had both of my bungee chairs for a couple of years now, and so I would definitely recommend them if you're looking to make an investment in a really nice, comfortable sewing chair. So that's it for my sewing essentials list for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below. If you're new here, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys for my next video. Have a great weekend.